And are also a driving force for business and politics. Digitalization, climate change, and last but not least, the corona pandemic show how important new solutions and creative approaches are in order to meet the challenges of the future. How can we best harness the potential of cultural and creative industries? The European Creative Industries Summit will discuss issues such as these. For the past decade, more than 200 experts from all over Europe have been coming together every year to discuss conditions in Europe's cultural and creative industries. This year, the German Federal Ministry of Economics and Energy is hosting the conference. And even though most of this year's summit will take place online, let's talk together. Develop creative solutions and future perspectives that will lead us out of this crisis to new opportunities. The European Creative Industries Summit, framing creative futures.
Welcome to Art Lab. Art Lab is an Italian platform dedicated to innovation in and through cultural practices, programs, and policies. It was established 15 years ago, and it is a partnership of around 30 very different organizations. It includes foundations, public bodies, European and Italian cultural network, businesses. So let's say what is in our jargon called the stakeholder of the cultural and creative sector. It's an open space for dialogue, and our mission is to improve the dialogue between the different stakeholders of the cultural and creative sector. We created a community. The community includes today around 4,000 professionals, and the kind of issue we cover is cultural welfare, regeneration in cities and urban areas, the role of ICCs in the next cycle of European programming, the transnational cultural cooperation, and several others. So, of course, we are extremely proud to open this European Creative Industry Summit that will end then October 28 in Berlin. And it is, of course, particularly meaningful that we start our summit from Bergamo, which is not only a city that as you all know, was particularly hit by the pandemic, but it's a city which has a very strong cultural heritage, and where everyday cultural activities spread all over the cities. Is a city of festival, is a city of very active organization, is a city of cultural welfare. So welcome to Art Lab 2020. Today, as you know, we will cover the issue of solidarity over charity. And I'm very happy to give the floor now to my friend Bernard Feisel, the director of the European Creative Business Network.
Thank you so much, Hugo. We're really proud. Thank you so much, Hugo. We are really proud with this special opening across nations, given this European tragedy we experienced together. So thank you to Bergamo, and welcome to all of you to our European Creative Industry Summit at the German EU Presidency 2020. Our topic, Framing Creative Futures, is the central topic of our times, the future, but more precise, it's the futures. Even before COVID-19, we have already heard of this new type of future called VUCA world, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity world. Today, unfortunately, we must add a second C: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, COVID-19 conditions, and ambiguity. We all know the culture and creative industries have been hit hard by this new VUCA world. Numerous reports and studies have proven the full stop of most of the economic activities in the CCI. So today, we're welcoming you to engage on this journey together, on this dialogue we're having over the next weeks. And we're curious to know who of you is here, from how many nations at this European Summit for Creative Industries. So I'd ask you to take a minute and join this online questionnaire you see here with the QR code by VoxAir, and let us know from what nations you joined today. We have some 300 participants registered, but we're curious, where are you from? And you have a few minutes now to continue voting on this QR code. So I will continue on the topic, Framing Creative Futures. In the recent months, however, the power of new ideas and innovations became obviously. Culture and creative industries are as much center stage in the crisis as in the recovery. The aim of the conference is to point out ways in which our sectors contribute to overcome the crisis and frame futures, especially with innovations of the creative industries to empower change of a fundamental structure for our futures. If it's in education, this is one breakout session, in sustainability, in COVID-19 recovery, so how do we do recovery innovatively? In administrations and bureaucracy, we have all learned how important an agile state is, so we will look into this. And last but not least, our starting point today, we all have to learn to be better, to be more innovative in helping each other in solidarity. Framing Creative Futures, ECIS meets Forum, Forum meets ECIS, is organized, as you have heard, by the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. And we really have to be grateful and say big thanks for providing all this fantastic infrastructure and changing a live event into this online streaming event. This event merges the yearly European Creative Industry Summit and the yearly German Forum Kultur und Kreativwirtschaft. So this is quite an unusual marriage and innovation in itself. And this event is also made possible because of our cooperation partners. If it's Art Lab today, if it's Bayern Kreativ, if it's the Creative Bureaucracy Festival hosting the next breakout session in October, Hamburg Kreativgesellschaft, Industry Commons hosting also a breakout session, and the Meisterkreis and ECHA helping us as well. The supporting and sponsoring partner is Kreativwirtschaft Austria, as in the last years. So at the very final closing event at October 28th, we are proud to welcome German Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy Peter Altmaier, EU Commissioner Gabriel, and one of the most engaging members of parliament for the creative industries over the last decade, Christian Ehler. This summit is not only a streaming event. Please use our offers to interact in Slack, to interact beyond the sessions and contribute to the working papers. We will look to build an online community to work on our contribution for this recovery. Though it's only an online event, we will make the best out of those digital opportunities to promote innovations by CCI in the current policy process, an ongoing process informing the recovery from COVID-19. We all know our sector is struggling day by day how to run the business. At the same time, we have to stretch and engage into policy and provide our input for policy to set up the best frameworks for the future. Now, let us have a look again at those Vox-Air questionnaire. Maybe it can be shown, please. And here you see the results. And we're really happy to see so many nations here. So together, our message from all those nations is Europe cannot recover without cultural creative innovations. So let's start. Hugo, please take over.
Yes, back to Bergamo. So back to Bergamo, and I'm happy to introduce you to Mr. Giorgio Gori, the mayor of Bergamo, who will take the floor later on. And there are a few people here in the audience because of the regulation, among them Nadia Ghisalberti, who is the Assessore alla Cultura from the city of Bergamo. And a third person I would like to introduce now is Francesco Micheli. Francesco Micheli is the artistic director of the Donizetti Opera Festival. Donizetti, the great Italian composer, was born in Bergamo. The festival is one of the major European opera festivals. And we thought that given that art and culture and creativity for all us is not an ornament in our life, has a fundamental role in improving well-being, social cohesion, our daily life, as well as economic development and disseminating European values worldwide. We thought that that was a good idea to start from a performance, an art performance. And I'm particularly pleased to introduce here Francesco Micheli and his artistic team. Thanks.
We want to try to understand what's happened in the last few months. Our territory has turned into the stage of a melodrama of the kind that only Gaetano Donizetti could have written and actually wrote. Also because perhaps he has experienced something like that many times. Like Giuseppe Greppi, to whom this tiny, marvelous little theater is dedicated. He was born poor. Once he became rich, he donated all his wealth to support grassroots classes. We know that tragedies generate pain, and this pain must be taught if we want to overcome it. If it's told, it becomes a lesson, also for those who haven't, fortunately, experienced such tragedies. The tragedy we've gone through sounds like a film we've already seen, not only because people from Bergamo are able to stay strong even in extremely hard times, but also because it's really a film we've already seen. There is a film that perfectly tells the kind of dramatic life people from Bergamo often go through. It's called L'Albero degli Zoccoli by Ermanno Olmi. It's our Bible. And it talks about a group of peasants from the country south of Bergamo in the 19th century who tried to hold on the tree of life, such as leaves. It was the film that made me approach many things in life, including great music. There's a young farmer. He's coming in this film. is coming home after meeting the girl who will become his wife. It's a night of mystery. And like a lighthouse in the night, some arcane notes caught his attention and give him the courage to enter his master properties. Those sounds are coming from there. Private property, of course. The farmer keeps silent and runs away. The master, from the stage of his window, enjoys the spectacle of his worth. His furniture, his wife, his son, who has learned to play the piano and is now giving a taste of his skills with a Turkish march by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Bravo, this boy, worthy son of the master. But then something very weird happens. That boy, the pianist, begins in his concert another piece and plays an impossible music, a music that could not exist at that time, in that place, in Bergamo countryside. Watching that film, I realized something fundamental in my life. There are people who think that something beautiful and precious like music can't be wasted. That only those who can afford it, only those who can understand it. It's snowing. They are entitled to it, just there in a small lounge, but music is beautiful, yes. Great music is beautiful. Mozart, Bach, Donizetti can't be locked up. They are like snow. They can't reach every corner. In fact, the great director of the film begins to widen the frame because music has no time or space and caresses nature, animal, sleeping farmers like snow. This music was invented by the boy, the non-professional actor chosen by the director. His name was Giovanni Fumagalli, and Giovanni was my cousin, a boy with several great talents, like our grandfather, Ermanno Bonapace, a pharmacist who invented many magical recipes. At one point, Giovanni, in the same pharmacy, decided to devote the rest of his life to another Elisir d'Amore, yes, beer. Giovanni is no longer here with us today. He was taken away by coronavirus like a leaf that is now floating in the wind. Giovanni Fumagalli has become a hero, like the character of L'Albero degli Zoccoli or of an opera by Donizetti, because Bergamo, willing or not, has become a spectacular, terrible stage that the whole world has watched. Now that Giovanni is no longer with us, it seemed natural to pay homage to him with that piece he invented for the film, which has never been transcribed. Since we could not say goodbye to him, it seemed to me that the best way to eternalize his presence was to transcribe it. To commemorate is not only to remember those who are no longer here. We don't want to find a reason for death. Just as the seed dies to bear a fruit, so it's important to take this music and make it our own, to make it come back to life. Good night, Giovanni. Good morning, Bergamo.
So let's start inspired once more by the artists of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I am happy to Bernard Wolfgang Weissmann, Head of Culture and Creative Industry at the Federal German Ministry of Economy. Thank you for joining.
Hello and a warm welcome to all from the German Ministry of Economics and Energy. Despite the challenges in these times, we are happy to have this event as a collaboration with the ECBN during the German presidency of the EU. When we started to plan for this year, nobody could foresee the developments. Now we have to deal with immediate help for the companies and the entrepreneurs of the culture and creative industries, and we have to have a view on the horizon and think about opportunities and policy options to get out of this feeling of desperation. So to put it out bluntly, let us try to find the common interest, develop common ideas, and focus on how to bring life to the programs on the European level that could help creative industries to resurface again. This is what we think will be mostly beneficial in these weeks ahead, creating optimism by creating ideas for policy and entrepreneurial actions in the short term to the midterm future. The boundaries for traditional industries become fluid when they are open to the input of the culture and creative industries. Everywhere we see more interdisciplinarity, but yet polities often remain focused on classical structures. There is a need for new alliances, and developments on the European policy level seem promising to us. For instance, the openness for culture and creative industries in the ideas of Horizon Europe is a relatively new and much appreciated development. Now is to be filled with concrete actions. That's why we look forward to the weekly sessions ahead and the output of ideas. Let me also take the opportunities to thank the organizers on the side of the ECBN for their great effort. A big thank to all of you. So let's get started and involved for our common objective to promote culture and creative industries across the continent. Thank you very much.
Second, give the floor.
Kind guests, dear friends, the city of which I have the honor of being mayor has had a direct, very hard experience of the COVID-19 months between winter and spring this year. We have been spared no aspect of that drama. Bergamo, however, had the opportunity to experience the value of solidarity at that juncture, from the closest scale, that of the neighborhood, to the international one. The images of military trucks that transported the coffins of our dead It is no coincidence that for Italian Capitals of Culture 2023. The Italian Parliament has understood and unanimously approved the designation. Culture as a cure for wounds, as a remedy for loneliness and sadness. We felt we needed it. We felt the need to rebuild a common belonging and to return to sharing our collective identity, also marked by COVID-19. And so today, in the face of transformed landscape, the future will not be the same as the past. Changes add up to changes, and the resulting uncertainty requires new tools for understanding and adaptation. Again, we need culture. We need the ability to read the transformation that only culture can enable and allow us to share. This is therefore the importance of the culture and creative industry. For each of us, for our cities,
So now let's move back again to Germany. I'm pleased to give the floor to, sorry. Sorry, to Katrin Habenschaden, Mayor of Munich.
The challenges of the COVID crisis for the European Union are manifold. Today's breakout session, the challenges for the principles of European democracy for the future of solidarity, also affect the understanding of cities and their role for society. Remember, for instance, the role of cities in the refugee crisis. The joint efforts made by the administrations and the citizens of Munich in order to welcome an extraordinary amount of people in need. People from the cultural and creative industries, media professionals, for example, have organized the very first welcome of refugees at Munich's main station through their channels. Even in COVID times, people from the cultural and creative industries were the first ones to respond with innovative ideas, for example, by redesigning offices, designing ergonomic furniture for home offices, or by organizing courtyard concerts or digital festivals. In my opinion, nations and regions are not able to put values of democracy into practice without being supported by strong cities. But what does being a strong city in a constantly changing Europe mean? It means, above all, working in cooperation and partnership. Munich is, therefore, a member in many European networks, just like Eurocities or ECBN. Being strong also means to empower and build a democratic and sustainable concept of solidarity for Europe. Cities must be actively engaged in empowering and shaping a Europe in solidarity as well as solidarity in Europe. The city of Munich provides a diversity of action as well as self-empowering frameworks to empower cultural and creative industries and to support solidarity in Munich and beyond. The Team of Excellence for the Culture and Creative Industries, for instance, is a service provided by the City of Munich to support the culture and creative industries. It offers free advice to individuals and companies working in every segment of these multifaceted industries, supports their image building and networking efforts. The aim is to promote the culture and creative industries, encourage the sharing of experience, and realize valuable synergies. The team also gives this highly diverse sector a forum in which to voice its needs and the opportunity to build bridges and contacts. One goal is to help both the public at large and the wider economy to perceive these industries more clearly as an innovative force. The City of Munich is trying its best to help the cultural and creative industries through the current global health and economic crisis. Munich empowers cultural and creative industries to strengthen the public space and mindset of Munich and to be a supportive actor in a Europe embracing solidarity.
Thank you. And now it's the turn of Professor Giovanni Fosti, Chairman of Fondazione Cariplo.
Buongiorno a tutti. First of all, allow me to thank Fondazione Fitzcarraldo and the Art Labs host, the Municipality of Bergamo, for this opportunity to contribute to the important debate that is taking place today about the central role that culture can play for the future of Europe. In the last months, governments, institutions, citizens, we have all found ourselves facing unprecedented circumstances, dramatic for many. A global crisis for which we were clearly not prepared, as demonstrated by the significant level of uncertainty that still characterize our present days. The pandemic has highlighted the fragility of the globalized and interconnected world we live in, and we are all aware that this crisis will have an impact on many crucial matters that go beyond health, such as education, employment, growing inequalities, new poverties. There has been a lively debate about the priorities that should be addressed in the months to come. Is this a time to talk about culture? Is culture a priority for Europe? A priority for grant-making foundation like we are? As a representative of a philanthropic institution, which has the aim to help social cohesion and development, I can share with you our answer to this question based on what we can witness in our territory and local communities, as we believe that the two cultural dimensions, European and local, are necessarily intertwined. At Cariplo Foundation, our answer is yes, we must support culture more than ever because we need strong communities to deal with the effects of the pandemic. But how can culture concretely contribute to communities' cohesion? I would like to focus on three important issues: uncertainty, inequalities, and connection. In first place, culture can help our communities deal with uncertainty and fear. When facing uncertainty, cooperation is key, and no doubt, cooperation and collective sense-making can be generated through culture. As a philanthropic institution, we feel that the duty to promote cooperation and connections rather than looking for excellent but not connected experience. Second, culture can play a crucial role in dealing with inequalities. Some people were hit by this crisis more than others due to their status, culture, or wealth. We believe that culture must not be something for the few, but an opportunity that should be granted to everyone. Something to look for not only in our cultural institutions, but also at the borders of our communities, where poverty rises, where people are struggling not only because of the crisis, but also because they may no longer feel part of their community. Think, for instance, of the estimated 10,000 students in Milan, one of the richest towns in Italy, that don't have a personal computer. How can this affect their participation to school, to knowledge, to culture? Can they really feel to be part of the same community of their more fortunate schoolmates and friends? On the third issue, connection, innovation in culture will be, in some way, also digital innovation. Virtual communities were made possible by digital technology, but we must be aware that innovation is not only a different way to do things, but should be something more, a different way for different people with different aims. Connection, rather than production, should be the leading concept, and the main purpose of connection should be that of contrasting inequalities, connecting the most excluded part of our society. With these concepts clearly in mind, our foundation has revised some months ago its philanthropic priorities, and culture is, of course, among them. Various measures have been deployed so far, which include support to cultural organizations impacted by the outbreak, but also a set of new opportunities and tools that hopefully will contribute to foster cultural innovation, the development of new models of cultural offer, and the promotion of cultural participation, in particular by the least advantaged. These peculiar last months have also spurred us to rethink and even constructively question some individual and collective behavior, needs, priorities, models, principles, and, as stressed in the work of Ugo Bacchella, Henning Berthold, and Alessandra Gariboldi, Europe for Culture for Europe, this crisis helped us to put into focus the huge potential of culture and creative sectors to reinforce solidarity in Europe and in our communities.
Thank you, President Fosti. And now the last speech of our first part of the session, it's Christian Heller, member of European Parliament, a very strong friend of cultural and creative sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the European Creative Industries Summit of 2020. What a year it was, in particular for the creative industries. While CCIs have been shown greater resilience than other sectors in the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, the sector was badly hit by the corona crisis. First estimates show that tourism, the social economy, the broader context of the creative and cultural industries could see a drop of more than 70% in turnover in the second quarter of 2020. These numbers are intimidating, but I'm hopeful that the creative industry will bounce back faster than any other traditional industries, and that they will also be able again to trigger noticeable positive effects in other industrial sectors, such tourism, retail, and digital technologies due to their innovative nature and cross-sectoral nature. CCIs and the creators involved are not only victims of the crisis, but also have a role in helping to overcome it. The creative and cultural industries and Europe's creators have been and are even more so the key drivers of reindustrialization in Europe, manufacturing, innovative services, and employment. In the past months, we have seen numerous remarkable initiatives by the creative industries, raising awareness for the situation, but also helping to deal with the new realities. CCIs, for example, involved in designing track and tracing apps, Fashion brands, textile companies, and designers are producing masks and clothes for medical personnel and citizens. Musicians, actors, writers, museums, opera houses are making sure that their content is available online, and we are still able to have access to the cultural events during the lockdown and beyond. Let's use the momentum and make CCIs a policy priority during the political crisis management. On European level, a lot has been done. The existing toolbox will be even more helpful to rebuild the creative economy than national short-term measures or measures within the recovery plan. The creative and cultural industry now featuring among the 14 strategic ecosystems for Europe identified by the European Commission, with some slight help by the European Parliament. The recognition of CCIs as a strategic industry reflects their contribution to our social fabric and the EU's soft power. It rewards their commitments to jobs, growth, and know-how in Europe. Furthermore, for the first time in history, we are strengthening research efforts in the creative sector by creating a cluster dedicated only to research and innovation in the field of cultural heritage and creativity within the Horizon Europe program, which is the biggest research program in the world. These are just a few of many more elements and structures available to you, and to gain support, funding, and to build a European network to strengthen the CCIs and to further contribute to innovative solutions across the broad, from digitalization to climate change. Let me conclude by reflecting today's motto, solidarity over charity. I like the idea very much that we showed solidarity, but I like the idea also very much that we don't act like having the more moral superiority of the victim. I think we should re-establish the idea that we are part of the solution, not part of the problem, specifically the creative industries. Creative industries in Europe do no longer need charity. They need the confidence to act as an industry and to fill the instruments available with their ideas and visions. Thank you, and see you again in October 28th in Berlin. And let be reassured, the Parliament might be politically a diverse place, but it had been always backing the creative industry. Not just backing, we are convinced that you belong to the core of the European idea. We want to fight for you, we want to talk to you, we want the exchange because we believe, as I said, you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Great work. Thanks you, Christian Eller. So this first part of our session gave different perspectives, all converging to the idea that culture and creativity form a fundamental part of the future of Europe. So now we have tried to sum up some of our key ideas and perspective in a document that some of you have probably already read, definitely the expert who will lead the 4 group, because now after the video, and I will give the floor to my colleague Alessandra Gariboldi, and the video will sum up those key elements, the framework for our discussion. Then, as you know, we will split into 4 rooms, 4 sessions. So try to figure out that we are in 4 different physical rooms. Each of these rooms is led, the discussion is led by an expert. And the task that all we have is to work on the document Solidarity over Charity, to add elements, to criticize, to change, to suggest changes, so that at the end of the session, we can review the document and come to a final paper that will form part of the green paper on the role of cultural and creative sector for the future of Europe, that will be delivered to the European Commission, to the Commissioner Gabriel, and to the Minister of the Federal German Republic, Altmaier, the Minister of Economy, for the conclusion of the German presidency of the European Union. So we have a very important task, and I'm sure that we will meet the expectations, our expectation, the expectation of our stakeholders. So let's start with the presentation of the topic.
Good morning. I am Alessandra Gariboldi, and I have been given the hard task to summarize the Green Paper to kickstart our conversation about solidarity over charity and the role of the cultural and creative sectors in the future of Europe. To address this topic, it's worth first clarifying what do we mean by European solidarity. Although solidarity is frequently used in the European everyday politics, yet the early handling of the pandemic showed how critical this concept is when it comes to become reality. Much faster actually reacted plenty of private and public actors across Europe by taking action, embodying actually the concept of pan-European solidarity far before than politics. The pandemic is stressing the need to overcome the idea of charity, helping others as an act of generosity, to embrace instead the idea of solidarity, which means acknowledging that others' needs are inextricably linked to ours. We argue that to frame the future of Europe, policies should be inspired by this lesson. Solidarity is not just about values, the values in which Europe, by the way, is rooted, but also about acknowledging that Europe is not an algebraic sum of countries, but a lively and interconnected system, demanding thus for systemic responses. Complex challenges such as climate change, technological disruptions, digital divide, aging population, migrations, just to mention some, are so complex that really require holistic thinking and intense cooperation. This means quite concretely that we must shape a shared vision and ensure a strong framework for collaboration among all stakeholders and among the different policy areas: economy, health and well-being, environment, all of them have to be there, with culture, creativity, and education at its heart. Why we need culture and creative sectors? Why culture, creativity, and education to sustain this vision? Well, we have one proof, what we saw and we actually witnessed during the pandemic, the incredible role that culture and creative sectors had when players actually, through innumerable actions, programs, and initiatives, were able to contribute to health and well-being, mental well-being particularly, fighting isolation, making available contents and collections, curating them, to not just entertain people, but to make them aware that they were part of something. They could share something, making sense of what was happening and creating bridges. But the importance of these sectors goes beyond the role that they had in tackling the hardest time of the pandemic. Since we argue that this role will be much more important for shaping a non-obvious future for Europe, centered around inclusiveness, sustainability, and solidarity. And this could happen thanks to the three distinctive intrinsic powers that the cultural and creative sectors have. The first is what we call the exploratory power, since culture and creativity confront the indeterminacies of the present through artistic and creative means. As arts did over centuries, they develop knowledge by challenging fixed minds. The second is what we call the integration power, and it's related to the typical production and co-production processes of the cultural and creative sectors that brings together different actors, viewpoints, and resources by which they create both common goals and common ground to negotiate identities and solutions. The last is what we call the innovative power. We consider that culture and creativity don't just help refining the present, but also enabling envisioning and giving shape to the unfamiliar. And they do this by dissolving dominant divides and working across all kinds of boundaries. That's all, so please join the conversation.
So, good morning. This was a short summary of our paper. As my colleague Ugo Bachelga just mentioned, this is just the beginning of the conversation. So we not just invited for experts to give their statements and their availability to exchange with participants in the 4 rooms that will be opened later on, but we also ask you and everybody to be really a critical friend for this, because solidarity also means for us to be really engaged into the definition of what do we mean, and also of our advocacy at FORT, because we are all about this. And so consider this just as a starting point. And now I will leave the floor to the first of our experts, Florian Drucke. Florian is chairman and CEO of the German Music Industry Association and co-president of the German-French Culture Council. With his strong background in law, he has also been active in the central issues debates of digitization for many years now, and is a regular expert in committees of the German Bundestag and the European Parliament. So please, Florian.
Hi, guten Tag. My name is Florian Drucke. I'm chairman of the German music industry. Other funding mechanisms like generosity or copy
look into, and I think that we need to stop looking for justifications for culture all the time, because it is and it will be there, and it's part of being a human. So we just need to create the right space and the right environment for it to continue to thrive and for us to continue to be normal human beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. This was recalling a very important point that to have a supportive culture and creative sector, we should have in the first place a culture and creative sector. So the well-being and not the mere survival, but the thriving of the who is actually the cultural sector is quite an important point. And this also points out to what also Michal Chladki, who is our next expert, is going to talk about. Michal is Director of Creative Industry Kozice, which is the legacy organization after Kozice European Capital of Culture 2013. Is an author of the concept of the Kozice European Capital of Culture BEAD project as well, and is also co-chair of the ECBN, leading on international projects for CCI's development, education, mobilities, and business models. Please, Michal.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My short reflection on the paper Solidarity over Charity starts with the facial masks we all wearing now in this moment of pandemic. And I understand this mask as the metaphor for the solidarity. So my main reflection would be on this very term of solidarity, which is very nicely described in the paper. And as I understood, the goal or the importance of solidarity is to go beyond the sectors, cross the borders. And what I really like is this idea that solidarity should go through the different policy areas. So we should all understand the other term, which I would like to highlight, the future, in the same perspective. Otherwise, we won't be able to connect in what we call solidarity. So here we can address culture and creativity as the main source of the imagination for the future. Because where there is no culture, there will be no future, for sure. So we all live in this very ambiguous moments, and I strongly believe that culture and creativity has this power to address present problems or present issues from the future perspective. So we can use culture and creativity to imagine common future and address the present problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michal. We have now our last expert, Andre Wilkens, who's director of the European Cultural Foundation in Amsterdam. He's also board chair of Tactical Tech Cooperative and the co-founder of the initiative of Vennegelschaft and founding member of the European Council on Foreign Relations. Please, Andre will also share, is by the way, one of the experiences that is going also to talk about the Culture for Solidarity Fund, was one of those that actually inspired most our green paper. Please, Andre.
My name is Andre Wilkens. I'm the director of the European Cultural Foundation in Amsterdam, and I want to introduce the workshop for a culture of solidarity, the challenges and opportunities for public philanthropic partnership. We're living in truly extraordinary times. The corona pandemic has hit the world hard and Europe as well. And we're still only at the beginning of a challenge which we may not even fully comprehend at this point. Despite this grim and uncertain outlook, I believe this could be a European moment, a moment where people understand how important it is to have European friends who support each other, a moment when you share vital information, expertise, and supplies, a moment when you realize how a generational crisis like this can be managed only through intense cooperation and truly a culture of solidarity. Initially, Europe's response was weak. National leaders took the initiative and protected the national interest first, closing borders, hoarding medical and other equipment. There was little visible European coordination and compassion. Europe and Brussels were not to be seen. Instead, there were Chinese and Russian solidarity airplanes landing in Italy with medical supply and staff. But there was also hope. Citizens reached out to each other, practiced small and often imaginative human gestures of everyday solidarity. This united us across balconies, social networks, cities, and countries. This is the culture of solidarity we ought to grow out of this crisis. This is the European moment I'm thinking about. A European moment of solidarity, a European moment of citizenship. At the European Cultural Foundation, we have decided in March to bet on this moment, and we have set up a new Culture of Solidarity Fund to which we have dedicated most of our 2020 resources. This fund supports new imaginative ways of sustaining people-to-people contact and human interaction across European borders in times of travel restrictions and social distancing. From the beginning, we have set up this fund as an open initiative, as a public philanthropic partnership. The last part, the public philanthropic, is hard work. We have not quite found a mechanism for creating such partnership and pool funding from the EU and from governments. There is political will, but there is so far no bureaucratic way. European solidarity is not just something reserved for states. The EU, a 750 billion euro recovery fund, and the ECB. This must be a joint venture of the public sector, civil society, philanthropy, and the private sector. How can we create a mechanism for meaningful joint ventures which support a European culture of solidarity during this crisis and beyond? This is the question for this workshop, and I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you all. Now this stream session is going to end, and we are going to split in those 4 rooms. You will find the links here below this stream page to join the session, so you can choose which session you want to join. You will be with the expert, who's named in the link, and those sessions will last 45 minutes more or less, and then we'll be back to the streaming sessions here where you are now. Just technical information: when you click on the links, you will see you will be asked to leave your name and your email to join the session. So please do it, because we really think this can make the difference. See you later. final summary from our experts. We know we had some of you had some trouble in entering the parallel sessions, so sorry about that, but I also remind you that you can check out on the ECBN website to join the conversation via Slack. So please do that, because this is not ending here. So now I give the floor, we keep the same order we had before for the statements. So I leave the floor to Florian Drucker for a 3-minute summary of what happened in your workshop, please.
Thank you, Alessandra. We had a very interesting discussion in a small group, Finnish, French, and German group. And we had several conclusions. First, we started with the discussion that we think that we should not only tend to digital now. We have to bear in mind that creative industries is analog and digital in so many aspects. We also think that the crisis fosters solidarity. And I came with the example of my branch, the music industry, since we saw a crisis from the last, from 2000 on. And so we are just back growing. Then we defined that education is urgently needed. We have way not enough education, also to rely on an identification with your sector to then become even stronger together. We then also defined that there is not enough identification with the framework, which also combines with the education part. We said that more European networking is important, also to break nationalist or isolated views on culture. And then we came to the strongest point, maybe, that we need more facts, we need more figures, but we need more soft figures and facts. So we have to go more into the social cohesion aspects, into findings with regards to the importance of our sector for the society. And I think that was basically it for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florian. And I would stress really this point of qualitative data and to make really understandable the value that we are producing as a sector. So this is definitely, please.
Just one more point, because we are also discussing Europe a lot, and we said that it's urgently needed to rediscuss European budget with regards to the crisis we're in. So we see the Parliament working on that, and that we were all clear that we need to rediscuss because everything was put upside down.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Florian. Now I leave the floor to Fatima Sausimal. Please, Fatima, could you?
Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. In our small discussion workshop, we had a very strong Southern Europe representation. So it was Portugal, Spain, and Italy discussing things such as the sustainability of the cultural sector and the fact that this pandemic crisis kind of made evident or revealed the fragility or the economic fragility of a sector that we have been working so much into affirming its economic impact. And we've also talked about the importance of changing paradigms, but changing paradigms even in terms of how we evaluate and measure the creative and cultural sector, more in terms of its social impact, and give bigger importance to the sense of citizenship and community that cultural activities help create and reinforce. And this is, of course, something that has implications at policy levels, namely in terms of the ways funding is attributed. Not the term solidarity kind of seems also a bit problematic. It's still very connected to a sort of paternalistic approach to the sector. This needs to be redefined and claimed back, because the creative and cultural sector has already shown its importance economically. And Finally, we've also talked about this, the idea also, the words have been a problem in our discussion. Maybe this is a very Southern European thing, but, but for example, even the word resilient that has been so much called when talking about the CCIs, it kind of pushed into this living on the edge narrative. Finally, one thing that is important to address is also that although, for example, we've referred examples of places where governments have had a strong response to the sector, on the other hand, these places also revealed a strong dependence on that response. So we're here dealing with a lot of big challenges, but mostly challenges around the sustainability of the sector, and also in terms of its importance in actually building and reinforcing this sense of citizenship that we need in Europe right now, especially to promote the solidarity systems we're talking about now.
Thank you so much, Fatima. So a lot of food for thought, and as Christian Ehlen was saying previously, we are not part of the problem, but part of the solution. So it's really strong. Thank you so much, Fatima. Michael Clatti, please, would you share what happened in your group?
Yeah, thank you very much. We had a very fruitful discussion. We also took it from this perspective of being no victim at the beginning, but nevertheless, with the pandemic, we see a lot of small SMEs in culture, creative industries really struggling or even go extinct, and so that's where we need solidarity. But we were discussing something which would be more kind of pragmatic solidarity. We even said that the advocacy and lobbying for CCIs might need be addressed with better financial support, so that the sector could afford to go there and lobby or do advocacy. That was one point. We also talk about this unification of a voice. That sector is very fragmented, and there's a lot of activities in different parts, like publishing has its own lobbying or advocacy or chambers, and then design, then arts, and it's very scattered. And so what we need is also the solidarity within the sector, so we can unite and have a stronger voice towards different policy and strategies, and also around Europe. And also, if we talk about the financial solidarity on the European level, we should also address the cultural solidarity on European level, so we can connect and unite on a cultural, let's say, solidarity level, not on a financial. And also, what we find out very interesting is this power of culture and creative industries to facilitate innovation and be part of really, let's say, added value to other sectors. So that's where the third parties or intermediaries and their support should play a really strong voice. And finally, what we really pointed out is this need for structural dialogue. So we need that, and maybe ECBN could really play a important role in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. This was quite rich as well, so great food for thoughts. I would also stress especially the part of solidarity within the sectors, because this of overcoming barriers is really the point. Of course, in the paper we didn't stress that much, but this is a struggle we are having actually internally. So this is a great point to point out. Thank you so much. And last, Andre Wilkins, please.
Yep. Hello. We also had a very interesting and good workshop. People from Estonia, from Italy, Netherlands, Ireland, Latvia. I noted down 6 points. I want to be quick. One is something which is echoed by many others in their workshop. it is now in a time of crisis to bring out your best ideas ever. Not to leave them in the drawer, but it's time to bring them out now, even if they sounded yesterday utopian, today they could become reality. Second, we talked about philanthropy, and there are big differences still in Europe in terms of what is philanthropy and what can they add to the party. In Italy and in the UK and in Germany, you have a big philanthropic sector, but in Estonia and Latvia, you have a small one. What can be done also in terms of legislation to stimulate a local, but also a European philanthropic contribution through new models of philanthropy, and that could be also in terms of digitalization, digital community foundation, stuff like that. So that was one element. The third one, culture and creative industry, has shown again in this crisis that it is very quick and imaginative right at the beginning. And that is a big asset. These guys, we think ahead. In that sense, we are essential service to the society. So when others are still struggling with the basics, we're already thinking about the next steps. And that should be, there must be a better mechanism to reward this. And I use the example, it seems to be much easier to raise a few millions to come up with just another copy of a pizza delivery app than an imaginative solution for society in times of crisis, where it is very difficult to raise even 10,000. So we don't get the priorities right here. So maybe there should be out of this crisis an idea to set up a society, a startup fund like the Vision Fund in Japan or something, which does not just chase another digital something, but which is chasing the things which really make society better. The fourth point was we discussed the value of culture and creative industry to society, and said we should have a better, and maybe that exists, probably it does, but how can we actually show this better to society? It's not only the economic impact. So when we talk about 7% of GDP and the workforce coming through the creative industry, that sounds big, but at the same time, it's small. Actually, culture is basically everything. So it's almost 100%. So what is not culture? But we're only looking at the economic valuation of the sector, which is similar to the car industry. But the car industry has come and will be gone even after Tesla. But the culture and creative industries has been there for thousands of years and will be there hopefully for thousands of years. So that's how we want to probably have to show that also in negotiations about the value to society and the valuation and the support it deserves. So we had a long discussion about that, and that is in itself a very important point. And then finally, we discussed again the power of digital in this crisis. There are lots of important opportunities, but there are also challenges. Opportunities also in terms of crowdfunding, new ways of philanthropy, and so on. But also challenges, because we know we have this conference now here in a digital way, and that's fine. But most things happen during a coffee break, and we don't have a coffee break. So we have to make up being especially creative in a different way. So I think we can't rely on digital for the full impact. Thank you.
You're muted.
And I will give the floor to, sorry, but it seems that I was not I was muted, so now I am unmuted, and I can just thank all who were connected during the working groups, the expert, Alessandra, Bernard, and everyone. And I will give the floor straight on because we are late to Bernard for the closing words. And we go on with our art lab, and all together we go on with the IFIS.
Thank you so much.
Berlin.
We're really thankful for this special European dialogue between Bergamo, Munich, Europe, and all the nations and participants here in those expert workshops. Also, great thanks to you as experts facilitating this intense debate. And we will now offer the opportunity for our visitors in the live stream to use, again, VoxAir and post any questions you might have resulting out of those interesting reports. If it's of this idea, you know, solidarity and copyright, solidarity and the economics of new ideas, the value gap. Andre was talking about. Please take a few seconds to use this opportunity to question another expert who here is in the room, in the digital room. Also, thanks again for pointing out, I think it was you, Florian, that it's not all digital, that we shouldn't forget the power of the analog, though I have to say the word analog sounds so old-fashioned. I'm afraid we have to reinvent what is real in meat space, so to speak. Calling it analog sounds like 20th century. We might need a new word for this in the 21st century. That also relates to what Fatima says. So important what words we choose to talk about the new things we experience. Okay, there seems to be no questions coming up. So thanks for the audience following for this morning. This gives me the opportunity to wrap up what cannot be wrapped up, obviously. My closing words are beyond the thanks to our partners here, a few observations. I think it's fair to say the first observation is it's clear solidarity is no longer a topic of social policy. It's about time that this leaves social policy, and Christian Ehler said it, many of you said it, it must be more part of innovation policy, investment policies, of regulatory policies, if you look into copyright, but also what Andre pointed out, how do we bring together the different parts of society from philanthropic, public, and commercial to engage on really helping each other, kind of lost track of tools in our society to help us across those silos we created. And COVID really showed that we as a society need to develop new tools to overcome our own silos. A second observation I made here was what you called coffee and creativity. What was first? Or to say it more focused, the traditional mindset we have, it's either economics first and then it's about solidarity, or is it first about solidarity and then it's about economics? Or to say it even more abstract, is it first about the economic value or is it first about moral values? And I think your debate with the different approaches showed here that this is a dualistic thinking we need to leave behind. We will not be able to set up fundings and regulations to improve solidarity by saying either economic sector starts first or the social sector starts first or the philanthropic starts first. So we have to learn how to move forward together at one point of time. Maybe a crisis is exactly this, where you learn to move together at one point of time because you cannot do it another way. In my career, I had the pleasure to work for a European Capital of Culture. And one of the biggest benefits of this Capital of Culture was the informal agreement of all stakeholders in the city, that in this year of the Capital of Culture, you start whatever you want to start, but you started together in this year. This alone was a great benefit, which cannot be accounted easily in either the material effects or the immaterial indicators, how to measure this has been a topic here. So overcoming this dualistic mindset, I think, is the second observation for today. And there's a good message to it, because it sounds difficult how to be multidimensional, you know, how to have coffee and creativity at the same time. Many policymakers always ask us from the sector, where shall I start? Where shall I attack my policy to support creative industries? And the learning from overcoming the dualistic mindset is, it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you start. If you start with economic value or moral values, if you have the right mindset, holistic mindset, you will in the end engage everybody. So don't keep on asking yourself and making studies where to start, just go ahead and start. That's my take, and that's my mission and hope, that we continue our dialogue we started here today. Thanks again to Bergamo, to Hugo, and to all our experts, and thanks for our audience to listening and following us. See you next time for the breakout session, and have a good day. Bye-bye.